Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are listening to the You Should Know podcast, hopefully watching the You Should Know podcast. Today we have Anthony on from PwC, and we're going to be talking about findings from PwC's inaugural Workforce Radar Report. So we're very excited. We planned this before HR Tech, actually, and didn't get to track Anthony or PwC down to find out exactly what it is. So Ryan and I are actually really excited to learn what is the report and obviously all the findings. So Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, William.
Sure, sure. And tell us a little bit about your role at PwC.
Yeah, so I lead our human capital consulting business for PwC. So we call it workforce transformation. So it's
Right.
everything that we do around HR, talent, leadership, culture, compensation, rewards, workforce technology, AI. Kind of anything that touches a worker in terms of process, operation, technology is in our bailiwick. I've been in this game for almost 30 years. It kind of hurts me to say that,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always been in consulting and kind of always around human capital. And I get the good fortune leading this practice, this business. I get the good fortune not just to lead the business and be in the market, but also kind of to lead our research, our eminence, our thought leadership. And so, as a advisor, practitioner, and student of all things human capital and workforce, I enjoy my job every day.
That's
Just
awesome.
not always the case for
Enjoying the
many.
job is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
don't worry, Anthony, don't worry. We only heard going on 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
For
you're
that
saying,
amount of
looking
time.
at me, you're like, there's no way this guy
My
is
No
God,
way.
what were
30
you,
years.
No way.
You're
I mean, I
8 years
would
old when you started? What are you doing here?
I would have
Exactly.
said 7 years max.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Too
Thank
funny.
you. I'm glad that your screen and your video is coming through fuzzy for me.
Wait, never mind. It just cleared up. I got you now. I'm good. Now I'm done.
Definitely
No, I'm
30.
kidding.
Definitely 30.
Definitely 30. Well, the cool thing about being in an industry for that many years is you get to see all kinds of change. I mean, just if we were to just go through any of the technologies, you've been through on-premise to
Hmm.
SaaS,
Hmm.
from SaaS to, mobile or responsive design to social to AI. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Like you've got to see several of these things that were supposedly, I goes, how are we going to survive this new onslaught of whatever? Only to find out, okay, yeah, it is a change. Yes, got it. However, it is another transformation.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that. I love talking to people that actually have stayed because you could have worked in 20 or 40 different industries. So like you could have done all kinds of different things, right?
Yep.
So the fact that you've
And
stayed
you
at the
you
large,
you joke about that, like it's listening to you say it's like the technology landscape, but you just even think about 30 years, people even like in HR were talking about personnel, right? Personnel and
yeah,
payroll,
yeah,
right? My one of my first clients was plugging in PeopleSoft client server version where we had to you know, worry about the little icon downloading to the desktop
that's right.
of the workstation. And that was the biggest change and the
Oh, that was
biggest threat.
huge. That was huge. The CDs, they sent you a box of
My gosh,
CDs,
I
and you
mean,
One
had to
after
put the
the other.
CDs.
yes,
Yeah,
I mean it was crazy, and like uploading it to the server and then distributing
one of
it
my
was
one of my friends did
crazy.
an install. I think of PeopleSoft at Kimberly Clark, and he was the IT lead, and he was talking about, man, my whole week next week, I got all these CDs. I got to watch. Was his what he said? I got to watch these CDs. I'm like now thinking, I'm like, you watch the CDs? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what did you watch? You watched
yeah,
them go in and
yep.
then run?
Someone's job was just to put them in and wait for it all to upload. I mean, it was it
100%,
was it was
100%. It was, and you know what? We laugh, but that was cutting edge
it was
at
cutting
that
edge,
time.
Was
100%.
That was
and
Yeah,
if
cutting
they
edge.
messed up if they messed it up,
Yeah,
no bueno. Wasn't
no
good.
bueno,
no,
no bueno,
no. You got to
and
call somebody. You got to
yeah.
call somebody. Actually, I mean, a lot of those installs they were deployed with consulting firms because they were so tricky. and it was a massive change. So, like, we laugh about it now, but it was a big thing then. And then the switch to SaaS. Oh my God. Like to not have it on premise, going through all that change and change management and transformation. So I like that you have that experience. I mean, you have that experience, you've got client experience. So tell us a little bit about the why this report, why you wanted to do this. What was
Yeah,
the
so
big?
it's a little twofold, right? One was it was a bit of a, I don't have children, so I will talk about this like my baby. So part of it was that, just personal passion, but two, there was this sort of gap in the market around what research is telling clients, and so we had this hypothesis. So this was 13 months ago. We had this hypothesis that I've led a lot of research programs, around human capital trends, HR trends, and I've sort of studied that and leadership and everything. Everything kind of looks back. I spent time last week at HR Tech in Vegas, and everything's kind of like, here's new. This is what people are doing now. Kind of get on the train, right? And we had this hypothesis that everyone's constantly looking back and saying, what is everyone else doing, and should I be doing that too? And there hasn't been a piece of research that has said, here's the map, right? If you want to get from point A to point B, here's what you have to do. And so we went after this to say, and hence the radar idea was, is there a place where, a piece of sky that we could color that would basically help us advise the market around what are the types of levers that they have available to themselves to actually achieve their business results? I know that sounds very consulting-y, and it's like sort of like, yeah, sure, like of course, like that's a no-brainer, right? Like who doesn't want the things that help them meet their business results? You'd be shocked at how many HR organizations and how many HR functions, talent organizations, CEOs that really don't understand the workforce lever. And so we endeavored to really prove out, how do we give actionable insights that are future-oriented, that are not pie in the sky, right? 2 to 3 years. We kind of kept ourselves bucketed at 2 to 3 years. What are the ways that they could evolve their workforce in order to meet their business objective, keep pace with change in today's environment, and drive that? What came of that was, this concept of a radar, right? You think about it like spinning and kind of noting these different signals on the radar. And you say, that's the GPS, right? I can take this route. Oh, wait, there's a detour. I could turn here and I can save 5 minutes. Where do I have to do that? So it's not that here's the recipe book, go do these 10 things and you'll be successful. Because in the end, that it's great for marketing, but it doesn't actually work that way. And so we knew that.
Glad you said it.
Yeah, and I've read. I mean, if you look at my bookshelf next to me, I mean, I have so many books on like leadership and running business, transformation, and they all just basically regurgitate the same thing. Some executive retires and then says, "Oh, when I was leading XYZ company," and it's just we're saying the same thing. Like a lot of it is sort of sophomoric, and so anyway, we sought after this and. Again, we recognize that there was an urgent need for businesses to really understand the workforce lever, to adapt technology more rapidly, and do so in this post-pandemic environment is very different. And so, it was a year-long research program. Myself and 4 of the partners from my practice, we led the research. It kind of took us through 20,000. We did a 20,000 person data input. We studied about 150 companies. We amassed all the data that PwC sits on and said, okay, how do we triangulate all of this information, right? And so that led us to Workforce Radar. We launched 2 weeks ago. It's been great pickup. I think we're really what's been great, and I shared a lot of this at HR Tech last week. It's been great is that whether you're a CHRO, a CEO, or you're a HR tech professional, there is meaning in all of this for everybody because you can apply it.
Hey friends, Marnie Robbins here, host of Vibe Makers, a podcast now on the Work Defined Network. Look, we all know workplace culture doesn't come from a slide deck. Gross. It comes from people. So on Vibe Makers, I talk to the folks shaping the experience of work from the inside out. You know, the HR and people ops folk, founders, leaders, and misfits building culture through small bets, big beliefs, and a whole lot of trial and error. No fluff. Well, maybe a little fluff, but mainly just candid talk about what happens when you stop duct taping your culture together. Come check us out. Listen to Vibe Makers wherever you get your podcasts.
We constantly were, kind of picking at each other saying, yeah, that sounds good, but how would a company do that? Right. And this company we research, like Lowe's and Fannie Mae, right? They're in the research. We were just saying, it's like, how did you really do that? Like, what decisions did you make to get you there? Like, okay, so how does that map to what we're seeing in the market? It's pragmatic. It's future oriented. It's all about using the workforce lever right through these 5 signals to drive results to get to the destination where you're headed, whether that's business model reinvention, new products and services, cost optimization, moving your headquarters, which is a big one. That's really what it delivers.
Nothing, as it sounds, Ron, nothing was off limits. You went into this without
True.
Again, us being around for a long time. Sometimes research is, you already kind of know the outcome. You already kind of know what you want it to say.
Right.
And so you do research that basically comes back and says what you wanted it to say, so that you can say, hey, we surveyed 1,000 people and it says exactly what we said. It would say, it sounds like y'all had just y'all, I'm from Texas. That's
right. I'm married to a Mississippian. So.
Oh my!
There's a lot of y'alls in my house.
There's a whole lot of y'alls. That's just it's a colloquialism. No worries. It really does sound like y'all had a white or a blank screen, and you just said, you know what? Let's see where this thing takes us.
And not in many ways. There is some controversy in the report and the findings, because there's not, it's easy for us to do a survey, right, and say, yeah, here's what the survey told us, right? We had to really come off the fence in a lot of places. Like, if you look at the location signal, it's a topic that I thought 5 years after the pandemic, 4 or 5 years after the pandemic, right, we would be done talking about location and return to office, and we're still here talking about it. So
I feel like we just started.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I know. And I want to put my head into a wall.
Me too.
Because of it.
Tell me when you do it, because I want to do it simultaneously, because Ryan and I have a news show and on Sundays, and every week we talk about RTO. Every week. Every week.
Can't get away from
it. I'm sorry. I really.
It's your fault. It
is absolutely not your fault.
Since we've got someone that knows what they're talking about here, let me just ask you, why does return to office fail? Why is it failing? What can companies do different?
So what's interesting in the research, we found that of all the employees, right, all the workers, right, because we looked at employees, non-employees, gig workers, all the workers, those that are most engaged and highest performing are hybrid workers, right? So hybrid is working, period, right? Highest levels of engagement, highest levels of performance, right? Followed by people working in person, right, on the job in person.
Interesting.
In location. Third is remote. Right. Wow. And it's statistically significant. I mean, the numbers are not vast. It's not like 80% of hybrid workers or hybrid workers are 80% engaged, while, people in remote are 20, but it's statistically significant. And so, so that's one, Ryan, to answer your question. One is, hybrid workers are more engaged. Forcing doesn't work. That's the second point. The mandates are failing. Every company that is announcing, CEO says everyone has to return to the office. Doesn't work. Right, you disenfranchise the workers. Right, you create a lack of trust. Right, it's people don't understand. Like, I don't know. We were extremely effective during the pandemic and productive. I'm still working. I'm going to the location. The second piece is because of that, they're going to those locations and they're seeing that. The third part is they don't understand. It doesn't work because they don't understand the value, the purpose of it. Right. We write a lot about we wrote a lot about this in the report and the research, because location mandates are not working. We've proven that. So what's mandates without purpose? Like, people are saying, I'm okay. I don't mind going to the office. Like, I'm okay with it. Can we just understand, what am I doing when I get there? What's the purpose of this location? Because when I get there, I'm sure many of your of your constituents feel the same way. Is I go into the office, not me, Anthony, but when people go to the office, I'm sitting looking at a screen all day, right?
Yeah, I'm on a Zoom call.
I'm on a Zoom call. I'm on Teams. I'm, right. I scurry out when I have to go to the bathroom, and I scurry out when I need to get something to eat. If I do that, but I'm back into this box again, or I'm, if I'm in an open work, So when you put those three things together, people are basically saying no. I mean, and you see it. I mean, I don't reference companies that are not in the in the research, but you've seen it in the media, right? There's a lot of companies that are announcing mandates, and what do you see? You see riots, you see people who are uproar, survey, or they're starting petitions, right? Is this what you want people to do? And the funny part is, which I will underscore, the fourth part, which no one is paying attention to, again, it was another one of the big surprises, is that what happens, and you'll see this in the intelligent enterprise, what happens when I free up all of that productivity, right? So in this signal, the location signal, if I'm a hybrid worker and you're forcing me to go back to the office, fine, okay, whatever. Let's just say I live in San Francisco, right? Not major transportation, right? I've got to drive, right? 30, 40 minutes, an hour commute. I got to pay for parking, right? That hour, 2 hours that I was productive 3 days out of the week, I was productive for 2 hours, so that 6 hours of productivity is gone, right? So when I provide that 6 hours of productivity through hybrid work, who's getting that? So if I'm getting it and I'm the employer, I'm getting 6 hours per employee per week of productivity.
Adds up.
So it adds up. You start to add up. You look at loaded cost rates, and you're in the hundreds of millions of dollars for some companies. And so you see that, and what do you want your workers doing? I want them, especially with AI, I want them giving me that productivity back. I want that innovation back to me. I want them to put more into the job. So we're sitting in this conundrum of, okay, I get it, right? I've been at work for 30 years. I understand the value of being in person and working with my colleagues. Full stop. I'm an office guy, right? Just for the record, I'm an office guy. That said, so I can't just tell people, hey, this is the way we all learned.
Right.
This is the way I grew up. This is how I learned how to do my job, different. Is because I watched somebody do it. It's different. It's not like that. We didn't have these mediums. When I started my career in the 90s, there's no Zoom. There was no, I used to get on, conference calls, right? That was the exciting technology, right?
All used to hover around the microphone, the speaker.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you move closer? We can't hear Ryan. Can you move closer to the center?
They're on mute, but we still do have the mute issue.
We have the mute issue.
We do have the mute issue. The hybrid thing's fascinating to me because I wonder how much of it comes down to choice and flexibility for people, for employees, and in the sense of it's not a mandate. I understand that there's a value. Maybe I do or don't understand that there's value, but I can choose. I get to choose when, I get to choose how or where, that type of stuff. I wonder how much of it's that. Like they get a choice in the matter. And I love your take. I love your research on purpose. There's a company here in Dallas, not to be named. They went to 1 day a week in the office, and it's on Wednesdays, but that was mandated. Everyone's going to be in the office on Wednesdays, and they're not going to work. They're just going to do soft skill development. And so they're going to have meetings and design charrettes and, like different things. But on Wednesday, you're going to work, but it's not going to be the work that you do. And it's a hybrid model as well. Like the rest of the office is open on those other 4 days. You can come or not come. But on Wednesday, you other than vacations and stuff like that, you got to be there. But it's fun. And like people understand.
But there's purpose to that, William, right? I mean, that's a strategy. That's an actual strategy.
That's a strategy. Yeah. How many CEOs have communicated that? Not maybe that per one, but a strategy around why they have Abbatiello.
That's the when you look at when you correlate the second signal around location with the fifth signal around leadership and trust, right? The trust factor is decreasing, right? So you put this mandate, right, and trust in leaders and trust in companies, particularly public companies, is decreasing, right? So the trust index is going down, and so you put this mandate on them, and they're like, okay, the workers are saying, okay, for what? right? And you don't have an answer. Again, people want to be led. I mean, I'm a student of leadership. Humans want to be led. They don't want to be out just roaming the earth freely. Maybe some do, but most people want to be led, right? And you look at, study the Serengeti, right? People hunt in packs for safety, right? For food. See, people don't want to be alone. They want to be led. And so if you give them a reason and you give them that purpose, not only is it affecting the location, that's a strategy, but now you're engendering trust, right? In the company and in leadership, and people are saying, okay, I get it. I may not like this, but I can understand why we're doing it. So now it's on me. And if I want that flexibility, right, to your point around the choices that we can offer, then that there are ways around.
So the point about trust, Anthony, I think this is a big one. Loyalty, trust from employee to company, and how the leadership communicates. In William's example, you're going to come in on Wednesdays, but this is for development. Don't worry about work, right? You're gonna work at home. You're gonna do your thing. We need you to come in Wednesdays for development, right? The communication is key there, but that's not happening, obviously, for a lot of companies. We should say not every company, but what can a company do to help rebuild that trust? So the report touches on all this, but what are you seeing that companies are actually doing versus pontificating on how to build trust and loyalty back into the rank and file of the company?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, Ryan, is transparent communication. And I mean, you don't need me to tell you that I'm not a Rhodes Scholar, but in transparent communication, it can increase organizational trust by 35% overnight, right? Just being able to say, there's those simple frameworks of here's what I know, here's what I don't know, and here's what I'm committed to coming back to you with, right?
Right.
That makes it works. It works, and people say, I get it. You're being honest.
The irony is we went through COVID, and the C-suite got great at this really quickly.
At least it
because
felt
they had
that way.
to. No, it definitely felt that way because there was so much up in the air. They wanted to calm everyone down, make sure everyone understood the purpose, etc. So it seems like we got good at it on some level at the C-suite, and then all of a sudden, once things settled down and we got out of COVID, they went back to kind of 2019 for some reason.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Is that, first of all, that's my imagination, but is that ish?
I see it across, I advise and coach chief executives and senior leaders all the time. And I'm always talking about transparent communication. I talked with one of my clients this morning. You can't just lead by, you know what you're doing and you're really smart and you know how to run this company. People don't not necessarily always want that. They actually want to hear, that you're listening. They want to know that you're being transparent and you're sharing. And actually, vulnerability is really important in today's world. Like, we are all humans, right? I don't have all the answers, but I'm committed to finding them. I'm committed to getting them, and I'll come back to you with that. But that's why I use RTO, right? When you just say, Chief Executive X says, everyone back to the office 5 days a week, right? And everyone's sitting back and saying, for what, right? If you said, okay, I want everyone back to the office 5 days a week. Culture at company X is so important that we want to use the time in the office to invest in apprenticeship and collaboration. And so, we're investing in the resources to do that. On Wednesdays, we're going to have learning days. You're going to see new technology in the office to help you with collaborating with other locations. You're going to see opportunity. It's not just about like, the workers told us they don't really actually care about food and the benefit, fringe benefits in the office. Like, they really don't. They care about none of that. It's like, that's great. Sure, they really care about fair pay. And after fair pay, they care about flexibility. They care about time off. They care about certain benefits. They really care a lot about, surprisingly, financial education, financial wellness.
Financial
really
wellness.
Important.
Yep.
really important. And so when you start to look at, we do a lot of conjoint analysis of preferences of workers in terms of, so we can help companies select the right benefit programs and where they can reduce costs. You'd be surprised. People always say, no, we have to have this, yoga benefit, or we need to have this, mental health benefit because, it's really important for us as our brand. I'm like, totally, you probably do need it, but do you need to be spending the millions of dollars on it and you're only getting 1% utilization?
Right.
Just offer it to people when they need it, and we'll pay by the drink. So it's all of those things together, coming back to that transparent communication, just being honest and sharing that purpose, does really engender trust. It's a bedrock for firming up the culture of the organization. And culture is not just, like the placards and the mugs that say, we're collaborative people, we're innovative.
Yeah. Rah, rah.
It's the way, the way things get done around here, right?
Yeah.
It's the way leaders behave.
If
right?
you have to tell people you're collaborative, you're not collaborative.
You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we look towards the future, then what are we looking at in terms of challenges? What are companies going to be looking at facing challenges?
You're bringing this back to the report. Oh,
I'm bringing this back to the report.
I see what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. Come on.
I was saying, you're doing it well. When you look to the future, I mean, let's talk about what's happening in the future, particularly in the United States, right? In the next 2 to 3 years, right? Obviously, we're looking at it, change in president. So we'll have a new administration, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless of who wins.
Right.
But we'll have a change in administration, right? We have inflation, right? That, continues to be, volatile. I don't necessarily see it like that, but people feel like it is. Right? We have uncertainty about the economy. Again, we've had the fastest growth in our GDP than anyone else returning from COVID, right? Equity markets are growing.
Economists you can go talk to 10 economists and they're all like, I have no idea what is going on.
Yeah.
And so when you get them alone, they'll tell you
right.
that, not on a podcast, but alone, they'll literally go, this doesn't make sense because these indicators are going this direction, but yet people feel completely different than what they should feel.
And it is
mind-boggling.
It's a climate of fear. It's fear.
Yeah.
Well, we've become a culture of fear, right? There's been a lot of fear mongering, mm-hmm. right? Especially in the United States. So you add those two. Then you add on, we obviously geopolitical, right? We have 3 different wars that are happening, with our allies. You add into that probably a decent amount of pent up consolidation that has to happen across industries, right?
Agreed.
So with capital being more expensive the last 3-4 years than it was the previous 10-15 years, since the GFC,
something's got to happen.
Something is going to happen, right? You're going to see. I mean, we saw 45% of CEOs that we researched said that they don't believe their company is economically viable in the next 10 years, right? Poof, gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gone.
40%, 45%?
45. Last year was 40. This year's, it's up,
it's a big number.
Not going the right way.
No. Right. And you say that, it's like,
but
okay, what's happening?
That means they have to innovate, right? That's or
reinvent. Is right. I mean, you look at some of these, you're seeing it happen, right? You're seeing consolidation happening in oil and gas, right? You're starting to see that happen in some, big tech, and there's smaller pieces that are happening, right? So you see that in communications and telecom. I think we're going to see a lot of pent up change. We're going to see a lot of transformational change from a consolidation. So you look at all that, right? So every day I step outside, there's going to be a massive amount of change that's happening in the future. So, when you look at that, it really, again, and hence the genesis of our hypothesis and how we got to this research, you look at those things and you say, okay, for you to actually be successful, right? That's where we got to the 5 signals. So we said the 5 things are, one is you have to figure out, everyone has to be a talent magnet and a talent factory. Right, so it's number 1 signal, not ranked wise, but that's the first signal. And we thought when we started this research, like it was an either or, like your talent magnet over here, your talent factory over here. Kind of where are you along the sort of value chain?
Yeah,
you need to be both. So it's both, and then how much are you like it's 2 dials. So how much do you dial up each of them based on your business, right? If you're high growth, right, talent magnet. If you are right, stability, innovation, talent factory, right, like develop capabilities, versus acquire and attract. The second is location. We talked about that ad nauseum at the top of the show. The intelligent enterprise, it's really about, how do we get our workforce technology, right? Human capital, like all the stuff that was at HR Tech, human capital cloud, workforce experience, how do we get ourselves ready for AI and generative AI as a whole? And then what do we do with that when we get that productivity gain? And how do we prepare for that? So like everyone, when we did our research, right, we talked to CHROs and CEOs, right, off the charts, numbers of people that are experimenting with generative AI, right? You're in the 70% in the executive ranks. Then you get it down to the individual contributor, the lower ranks, it's like 30, 40%. So that should be reversed, right? We need our workers on the ground innovating with technology around generative AI.
Let me ask you a quick question about that, Anthony, because I've had this thought, and I don't know how stupid it is.
I'm willing to tell you the answer to that.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Somebody needs to. Ryan tells me every day, so does my wife. But, however, this is around how we're going to learn generative AI and AI in general. Like, it seems that the expectation is everyone go home and play, or everyone go home and try stuff. Why isn't it the company, like going back to a return to office, why isn't it we're going to go and learn? Like, we're going to try a different tool today. There's 8,000 different tools being developed every day. All right, let's try this video tool. All right. And then see what's there, what's not there, and what we can use for clients and maybe what we can use for the business. Like, it just seems that could be an engagement model and a learning model at the same time. It's like, okay, we're all going to learn together rather than everyone go off in their own directions and go learn something that's bespoke. That, again, when you learn something, you might not bring it up because you might think that everyone else already knows that. Like, you think that your prompt is so unique, and all of a sudden, I know employees well enough to know that they don't want to look bad in front of their peers. Now, if everybody's in a conference room or everyone's on a Zoom call or whatever, and we try something, well, there's no bad idea. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? It just seems like a wonderful opportunity to learn together.
I agree. I think we have to democratize the learning, right? Upskilling is the big term, right? Upskilling everyone around generative AI, right? I'll use PwC as an example. We have 75,000 employees. We skilled everyone up on generative AI. We rolled out a My AI Academy. We have prompting parties. We get people together to talk about what are the right ways to use ChatPWC. It's great, right? It's now put everybody in the place where, whether you're client service or you're serving the firm, right? We've democratized that, and that's the model, right? I hate to fluff our own feathers, but we are that. We're that model.
I thought you misspoke and said ChatGPT the wrong way, but you said
yeah.
Chat PwC. I'm like,
yeah.
I saw
you actually said it the right way.
And prompting parties, that didn't go unheard. What is a prompting
God, that's
party?
great.
Tell me more.
Well, it's like, you remember the days of hackathons, right? We'd get in, we'd stay up all night, we eat pizza. I mean, granted, we're not doing that, but, we're getting together and we're talking about, effective prompting, right? And how to use, what are the right prompts? What are the right way to use prompts?
Yeah.
And like, I use this. Look, let me show you what happens when you do the difference between this. And everyone just gets together and shows. And, we make it a lunch event, and we do that in our location. Like, it's a reason to get people in the office. Not that I want them to spend all their time in the office, but it's a great way of being together and networking and building connectivity, right? Purpose.
Well, that makes sense, though, because you have, obviously not all 75,000 care about this, right? But I'm assuming there's a healthy number of people at PwC that actually care about this and want to be part of it, right? And this is interesting to them. So this is something that benefits them that come into the office.
Correct.
I don't think anybody wants to be left behind, Ryan. So I'd say that all 75,000 do want to learn some element of this, because no one wants to be.
I know some people that would not mind.
I don't know. It just seems like no one wants to be left.
They shouldn't.
Behind.
They shouldn't.
They
right?
shouldn't.
Somebody asked me that last night. No, it was my trainer. He asked me that this morning. He's like, "Oh, do you use a lot of AI?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." I'm like, "Do you?" And he said, "No, not at all. I haven't really tried it." I was like, "Don't you have a phone? Like, don't you have an iPhone? Do you use Siri? Like, of course you use AI. Like, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You use Alexa. You use Siri. You use Google." But yeah, I mean, it's on the intelligent enterprise. Like I was telling you, like we had I don't know what to say. The number but it was quite low. Like the individual contributors, the worker, right?
Right,
It's like
like
only
30.
20% or so of those, probably like 30-40% when you add in like middle management.
Right.
People are not using it. And to your point, William, it isn't like go home and figure it out, because that's where people are doing it. We specifically asked at work, right? Because
Right.
people are using it in their personal lives. They're using all the prompts everywhere, but it's at work. And say, I met with one of our technology clients, big technology client, and in HR, and they're saying, yeah, well, I don't know how, like, we're just trying to figure out how do we get licenses for different, from this one, how we pay for them. I'm like, that's the question you're asking? Like, that shouldn't be the question you're asking. Like, this is, what you could do with this is so much different. So whatever you can afford, like, get it, democratize it, get it into the hands of everyone and let them use it, and let's find the innovation there. So I think that's where this whole idea of everyone is going to migrate to being an intelligent enterprise. It's going to happen.
I got a quick question there about HR, because I believe they've been taught over the last 10 to 15 years to build a business case for software, right? So build a business case for, Workday or Taleo or whatever the bid is. So build a business case.
Taleo.
I know. I miss it too.
Verve.
Verve. I miss Verve. But the thing is, they've been taught to build a business case, and this is not that.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. I mean, I don't know if that was a great segue, but you just gave me you put the ball in the tee for me, because the next signal is about the workforce balance sheet. We proved that point, right? HR does not understand the total cost of the workforce, and really the levers that they have available to them to do what we're talking about, right? So, right, building a business case is like, I want to buy X, licenses for Gen AI, and, I need $2 million. Like, what is that? What am I going to get for that $2 million, right? What type of productivity gain? And then, it doesn't happen. Whereas finance, right, for generations have been saying, right, we need to invest $100 million in a new, ERP platform, and we're going to do X, Y, Z. And great, where do we sign the check? Right? HR needs to be that level of success and that level of hero in the boardroom. And so the workforce balance sheet signal, we focus all on, do you really understand, right? We asked every CHRO, right? How often are you asked by the CEO or CFO to reduce your headcount, to cut costs? Right? Lead workforce reductions. Like the go-to answer is cut the cost of HR or go to headcount reductions, right? Just take a blunt instrument to the workforce and just cut out as many heads as we can so that we can prove to the street we're doing better. It's like, that's the wrong answer. If that's what's happening, you've missed the opportunity. Your opportunity, CHRO, is to look at all of the accountable costs that you have in your workforce balance sheet, right? So think of it in like, it's not just HR costs, which, somewhere between $2,500 and $3,800 in the US per employee, depending on the size, right, is what you should spend on HR, right? That you could say, all right, yeah, we're a little above, we're a little below, right? That's great. But a lot of the HR functions, what happens? Or when cut heads, or we're not hiring, or let's cut all the recruiters. Let's get rid of recruiters. We don't need to do leadership. Let's just cut talent development. And then what happens? A year later, we need to build skills, and then we got to hire back, and we got to go hire consultants. And don't get me wrong, I have a job because of that. So, I'm happy for it. That's what they miss, right? It's this constant pendulum. And so look at the workforce balance sheet, understand where are the true direct and indirect costs. And it's, you'd think I'm speaking in tongues when I talk to clients about that, right? What do you mean, Anthony? Like, what does it mean to look at all the indirect, the direct and indirect costs? And I'm like, it's very simple. Like when you start to think about the opportunities that you have available to you, right? HR that you've got, our headcount costs, but like, do we understand payroll? Like there are so many payroll anomalies that happen in organizations that people just don't know, right? Typically, I always tell companies, right, if you underpay someone, you're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. But if you overpay someone, do you think they're calling and saying, hey, by the way, I got an extra $100 in my paycheck this week, But when you get someone who didn't get $100, they're going to tell you, right? Yeah. So when you add up those underpayments, they're usually about equal to your overpayments. It's amazing how it works. So if you're underpaying by X, you're probably overpaying by the same amount as well. That's their, tax efficiencies. Like we're talking about all this RTO stuff, right? Mm-hmm. How are you accounting for tax liabilities for someone who lives in Utah, who says they're working in Chicago, who's, traveling to this location? right? Where your offices, right? Where do you have your office locations? What's the labor mix? What's on balance sheet? What's off balance sheet? Right? What are the employee preferences? Like I was talking before about the conjoint analyses that we do around preferences of the workforce, right? Most workers are going to say, I'd rather another day of PTO versus some of these, fringe benefits you're giving us. So, right. Some of them are, and by the way, that can be a benefit, or I want a little bit more 401k contribution, right? Ding, 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 jackpot. That's a tax benefit for you as an employer, a tax benefit for me as an employee. We'll save us both money by getting you and make the workforce believe that we're just doing it because they want us to do it. Right? These are all things that I can get. I tell companies all the time, and we saw it in the research, you could get $1,000 to $3,000 per employee by just understanding those preferences in savings. And that could be your full go to the board and say, we had one client that found $40 million of savings that they could get overnight.
Wow.
$40 million.
That's
HR,
huge.
right? I found $40 million. I can and go to the CFO, go to the COO and say, I can take out $40 million of cost. I want $10 million for my function to invest in development, to invest in upskilling, to invest in generative AI. You think someone's going to say no? I'm going to give you $10 million when I can take $30 million to the bottom line.
How fast can I say yes?
Yeah, right. And I mean, but HR leaders don't do that, right? And it's shocking to me.
I think I know why, or I'm going to guess.
Oh, please.
I have no empirical evidence to prove this. It's guilt and shame. Because if they could go to the CEO and say, I could save us $40 million in costs, why didn't you tell me this 6 months ago? Why didn't you do this a year ago?
Because they didn't know it 6 months ago.
Yeah, but see, that therein lies. They don't want to look bad. They don't want to look bad in front of the rest of their peers or their perceived peers in the C-suite. So guilt and shame and idea. You never got to the fifth. We need to get you to the fifth.
I did. We talked about it earlier, but it's like leadership and trust. Like that's where having the right leaders, right, investing in leadership, building trust, transparent communication. That's the fifth.
So if we're, I know we're coming up on time, but if we're wrapping this up into a nice, big, pretty bow, what can companies do, leaders do, quickly, immediately to impact the workforce?
Yeah, that is the.
You get asked this question every day. Oh my God.
This is why he gets paid.
Silver bullet.
This is what he
silver bullet.
This is the silver bullet question. Yeah. I was going to say, how many millions and tens and 20s and 30s and millions of dollars that question is. So, I mean, number one, it's understand, like there's four things. One is to understand, their talent strategy, like what's happening in the next 3 years with the business and with what's happening outside, right? Yeah. What's in my sector? Like, do I think we're going to be consolidating? Do I think we're going to be around? Right? What's happening in the next 3 years, both externally and internally? Like, what are we trying to achieve? What's happening externally within that sector? I think that is first to understand the talent strategy. The second is the point around the technology that they have. Right? So many organizations don't understand, they're sitting in legacy systems. They don't understand why, what are the things that, we really need. How can we upgrade? Are there ways in that infrastructure, that tech stack that we could really drive more?
Some of it's just getting out of the applications that they bought, like adoption and usage. Like they bought something that's fantastic. They're using 40% of it.
Right. That's one. Part of it is just like cleaning up the plumbing, right? So just understand the data technology that you have. Is it fit for purpose? Are there places where you could retire, replace, right? Re-engineer. So the third piece really is about the tech stack, really getting yourself ready for generative AI. The third is like uncover the costs. Like let's look at the workforce balance sheet, right? And figure out what's the true balance sheet of the workforce. And what are the levers that we have available to us, right? So understanding the preferences, how much are we spending in benefit programs? How does that benchmark against, the market, right? There's so many, health and welfare benefit plan brokers, right? They make commissions. They're going to convince you, hey, you could save $1 on this plan if you go to this plan, and they get a bigger commission on that. It's all available to you. That's publicly available, right? So you could see where all those commissions are. And so many times we help clients just to understand that is millions of dollars in savings, but just getting a handle on, that true cost and that balance sheet. And the fourth one, and you kind of can't have any of these conversations saying it's just, do you have the right leaders, right? Investing in building transformative leadership capabilities, right? Most organizations have abandoned the leaders in the organization, right? You get to a certain level, we assume because you make a certain amount of money, you're going to be just good at the job. And that's it. And I'm here to tell you that's not the way it works. And I work with executives, chief executives, C-suite leaders who are in their 50s and 60s, and they will tell me all the time, Anthony, I would do anything for just more of this, right? More of someone who can advise me, more of someone help me develop my skills. Like what I was doing 30, 40 years ago, it's not as relevant today. So, I need to continue to invest, and I'd love the company to help me navigate that investment. So those are the four things I would say are
everyone
the key
needs
pieces.
a coach, a mentor, a sounding board, stuff like that. And again, ripping that out or just assuming that someone has it is, well, we all know what assume means. So,
yes.
Last thing, Anthony, this is fantastic, by the way. I'm so glad that y'all took this on to research, and also you put a report together. Where can they find this? Where can the audience find this report?
Yeah, so pwc.com/workforce radar is the place. If you just search PwC Workforce Radar, you will hit it.
Awesome.
As well. You can my Twitter, my LinkedIn profile, AP Abbatiello. Always, you can always see I'm always posting on these topics. I always tell people I don't post anything about cats or kids or anything else.
Just workforce.
I guess I can't say that. Just workforce, just talent, leadership, workforce. That's
You're
it.
So interesting.
That's it. That is my social.
Well, brother, thank you so much for carving out time for the audience and telling us about their research. We absolutely appreciate you.
Listen. That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. The sound of captivating electric performance, dynamic drive, and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance, redefined. The fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron.